I'll be back.
Hang it up, 5!
Fire, 5.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for coming here for us to spend a few minutes talking to you. I'm General Vince Brooks. I'm the commander of the Republic of Korea U.S. Combined Forces Command, U.S. Forces Korea, and the United Nations Command. And it's really a great honor to be joined today by a team of leaders who are great teammates and who are strategically very important to the ROK-U.S. alliance, beginning with 4-star Admiral Harry Harris, the commander of all U.S. forces in the Indo-Asia-Pacific region.
The most important starting point is the diplomatic starting point. So we hope and we work for a diplomatic solution to the challenge presented by Kim Jong-un. And a strong diplomatic effort backed by a strong military effort is key, because credible combat power should be in support of diplomacy and not the other way around. As far as a timeline, it would be crazy for me to share with you those tripwires in advance. If we did that, then it would hardly be a military strategy, would it not? Thank you.
You are thinking about bringing in some Third Fleet ships to fill the gap and address readiness in terms of numbers.
First, on the question of provocations by North Korea, we have to recognize there have been over 28 in the last 18 months, and that includes 2 nuclear tests. So having a pause in provocations is always a good thing. That means there may be some success in the diplomatic efforts. But these decisions really have to be left up to Kim Jong-un. In the meantime, we're going to exercise because we need to be ready. We're a professional force. This is an alliance of 2 very professional militaries supported by a broader coalition of the United Nations Command. And being in readiness to fight tonight if we have to is what we'll do. So that's what we're going to concentrate on, and we would certainly hope that Kim Jong-un would make wise decisions about that.
Hey, this is just early days on the John S. McCain issue. So we're looking at that. I'm going to leave it to Admiral Swift, who's the Pacific Fleet Commander, who's the commander for both the 7th Fleet in Yokosuka and the 3rd Fleet in San Diego, to figure out if there is a need to move other assets forward and what those assets are. But I'll tell you today that the ballistic missile defense destroyers and cruisers that we have in the region, they're only part of the layered defense in depth that we have to defend ourselves and our allies. If you look behind me and over here, I mean, that's Patriot. I mean, that's why we have Patriot here. That's why, in conjunction with the Republic of Korea, the alliance decision was made to bring THAAD onto the peninsula, into South Korea, because it's part of an entire defense in depth scheme that we have, and I think we should remember that it's not just one piece of that, it's the entire structure, if you will. Thanks. All right, so on the first question with regard to the red lines that President Moon mentioned that you referenced, I don't want to get into the business of interpreting President Moon's red lines. You should ask President Moon what he meant. But I believe strongly what I said to an earlier question, and that is that diplomacy is important. And so the diplomatic lever has to be applied first, and a diplomatic lever is stronger, more effective, more powerful if it's backed by credible military power. And that is what the Republic of Korea U.S. alliance represents. It represents a very strong military backup to our diplomats, who should take the front line in my estimation. So that's how I view that. Thank you.
So I've never heard it called the Acheson line before, but I assume you're talking about Secretary of State Dean Acheson's statement back in the 1950s that caused a misinterpretation by the Soviet Union. Is that what you're referring to? And so what you need to understand about the world situation in 2017 is it's completely different than it was in the 1950s. Today's world is a multipolar world with a very complex set of situations. We have a very good alliance here in Korea that is different. Back in the 1950s, it was the United States versus the Soviet Union, and words had to be very carefully chosen, and Secretary Acheson chose some words that caused a bad reaction on the part of the Soviet Union. Words matter, but in this situation, it's a much more complicated environment because you have our alliance with the Koreans, you have the North Koreans, you have the Chinese, you have the Russians, you have everybody that plays in that world. Multiple nations have nuclear weapons now, so you have to still be very careful with the words that you choose. And our nuclear capabilities are the foundation. They're the backstop of our collective defense here in Korea. But nonetheless, those capabilities are much more complicated today. So single statements, they reverberate around the world, but it is much different because of all the number of players that exist.
As military leaders, we take threats from anyone seriously when they threaten the Republic of Korea or they threaten the homeland of the United States. And we've seen through demonstrated ability that there's a rapidly developing capability in North Korea. They're learning quickly, and they've stated what they're after. So as a military man, I take them at their word and have to be prepared to counter that if possible and to ensure that it doesn't happen in the first place if we can. That's the credible deterrence that we spoke about earlier, while we're giving diplomatic actions and economic actions a chance to be successful. So we take it seriously. And whether they can or not frankly, it's a bit academic. Their expressed intent is what I operate off of and have to be very prepared for here as we defend the Republic. And perhaps General Greaves, the Missile Defense Agency Director, would like to comment as well.
Yes, good afternoon. As General Brooks has just stated, and as we may have seen in the press, that ability to miniaturize and place on top of an ICBM in the Missile Defense Agency, we're taking it extremely, extremely seriously. Our job is to take the intelligence, take the requests of our operational commanders, and design, build, test, verify, both with software, hardware in the loop, and flight tests, our ability to mitigate and counter those threats. So the answer is yes, we are taking it seriously, and we are taking steps to, again, plan, design, build, and test mitigation against that threat. Thank you.
All I can say is I'm very confident with our missile defense capabilities. Our missile defense capabilities that are deployed both in Alaska and in California have the ability to intercept any threat against the United States. I'm also very confident about the capabilities that we've deployed here into theater. The sea-based capabilities that Admiral Harris described, as well as the Patriots that you see here, as well as the THAAD that we've deployed in concert with our Korean allies here on the peninsula. They all have those capabilities. When we think about how we deal with the threats in North Korea, that is a joint problem that we work with our Korean allies. I'm a supporting commander to General Brooks and the Combined Forces Command of Korea. I provide all capabilities that Strategic Command has in order to provide him options to deal with things. Those are space capabilities, cyber capabilities, deterrent capabilities, missile defense capabilities. We provide all those forces that give General Brooks options to deal with that, and then we work it inside the alliance to develop a collective defense of the peninsula. And those options will be considered by our leadership as well as our political leadership. Thank you.
Hey, look at that. I don't know what more to add to what General Hyten said, but I'll simply say that I have complete confidence in the capability of the weapon systems that we've developed to defend our own homeland and that of Korea. In talking about THAAD, for example, we have had 15 tests of THAAD. We've had 15 successes. I mean, that's, you know, I'm not a mathematician, but that's almost like 100%. So I'm confident in our ability to destroy any missiles that come into our defended area, which is important. If it's not going to be in our defended area, then why waste an asset to shoot it down? Thank you.
Just one more point to add. The systems that we deploy, the Patriot and the THAAD, we take great pains to design, build, test them both in a software lab with hardware in the loop, as we call it, as well as actual flight tests under very credible conditions. These tests are not staged. You may have heard that in the press. We have operational testers within the Department of Defense that help craft those tests, set the metrics, and assess how well we've done against the threat that we're testing against. So from beginning to end, these tests are credible, they're robust, and they've visibly demonstrated our ability to defend the area we've been assigned to and the operational commanders have assigned. Thank you.
Well, it's an important question. First, it's good news that the people of Seoul can live in relative peace. And I say relative because there's a threat to their north, and you've alluded to that threat. And we have a leader up there who is threatening South Korea and threatening beyond South Korea. With every day that passes, the threats grow larger. Among the threats are the things you talked about. Long-range artillery that can, in fact, fire and reach Seoul. If the people of South Korea believe that North Korea won't do it, we want them to also feel confident that North Korea won't do a firing of long-range missiles either. The consequences are severe on both sides, obviously. The threat to the civilian population here in Seoul, Korea, and beyond, very dangerous and deadly. And the threat and the response that would come in exchange for that to North Korea should be what gives him pause. We cannot defend against everything, and no military man would ever tell you that they're invulnerable. So what we have to think about is layers of defense and layers of protection. In the meantime, trying to make sure that these diplomatic actions, these economic actions, and that strong military foundation keep him from making the decision in the first place. And that's really what we have to concentrate on.